What is up, heroes? This is MidniteZer0 and welcome to Heat of the Week. This is going to be for Week 4. Now, as you might expect, there was, of course, plenty of heat. That said, this week in particular, I will put a little disclaimer. Not a lot of it was effective. Yes, teams did bring some wacky sets. They brought some untraditional moves. They brought some interesting EV spreads and such, but there wasn't a lot that really pulled through in the matches themselves. Whether it was just in general, like that was particularly effective, or it was the heat part of the set itself that really came to fruition the way that I like to look for each week. So keep that in mind as we go through the rankings and such this week. And I would like to remind that this is the heat that I thought was the most fire of the week. I only watch so many battles. I watch every battle I can. I don't always watch from every perspective. I don't have the time to watch every single team builder. So I am also partially dependent on what the coaches send my way. And so with that being said, let's get into the first Pokemon, the number 5 heat of the week of this week. And that's going to be Landorus T from Jodor, coach of the Seattle Sea Kings. Now, when you look at this Landorus T, you're probably seeing Adamant, Intimidate, Earthquake Knockoff, U-Turn, but where is the heat? The heat is in the HP, Spadef, and that Yache Berry. It's not too crazy to throw Yache Berry on something and spitting an Ice Beam or Hidden Power Ice, but to fully invest in HP and special defense is definitely out of the ordinary. I believe this was to help potentially take an Ice Beam from Nidoking and knock it out with Earthquake. Now, of course, Knockoff is there to hit potentially other mons. It's just great in general for utility. U-Turn is pretty standard as well. Grass Knot is not. Grass Knot is not a very standard move itself on Landorus T. I believe it is there mostly to hit Quagsire, as it would definitely do so. In the match itself, it didn't really have the opportunity to either use Grass Knot to hit Quagsire or to potentially take a Hidden Power Ice or an Ice Beam from anything and really hit hard back. Instead, he essentially tried to use it to take on Tapu Lele, given its bulk, its HP, and Spadef investment, but sadly it didn't really do that much. And with that, let's move on to the next Pokemon. Number 4 is going to be Galvantula from the Rochester Rhydons, coached by Big Pump Gaming. This Galvantula is pretty heat. Nothing too crazy in its nature or its EV spread, really. It's, got enough speed to outspeed any relevant threat in its speed tier from that week, and it's got plenty of special attack to hit hard with Thunder, which is its stab, compound eyes to give it that accuracy, focus dash to make sure it gets one hit off at least. What really is kind of heat here is the light screen and the sucker punch. I'm not 100% sure why the light screen is there, but going up against Chris Cobain, coach of the Philadelphia Braveries, you've got an incredibly intimidating Thunderous T up ahead of you, so light screen would help out a lot with that. And you also have potentially an Azelf in front of you that almost always hits on the special side. And speaking of that Azelf, I believe that's why the Sucker Punch is here as well. Given that Azelf would outspeed, Sucker Punch would be there to hit it super effectively if it's running Sash, after it takes a Thunder, maybe after it's already been priorly damaged a bit, maybe to potentially break its Sash before dying. But that's why this pawn in particular is heat, that light screen and that Sucker Punch. It didn't really come to fruition though, as I kind of added the disclaimer, so it didn't really do as much. It didn't really get the chance to show off its really creative set, which is kind of sad because it's a cool set. It's a heat set. And I really hope that Big Pump Gaming tries to incorporate this sort of heat in future matches because I love to see it work. But next up, we've got Alakazam from the Free State Torcats, coached by Duncan Knee Deep. Now, this Alakazam in particular is pretty heat because of one move, and that would be Counter. Now, this is running a max special attack, max speed, and that seems to be what gave Kelly under the radar trouble during the match itself. He was pretty surprised that it ran max speed, but this Alakazam in particular, I believe, is dedicated to potentially kind of like a last resort for Mega Charizard X. Now, Mega Charizard X to try and kill an Alakazam at +1 is not going to need to go for Flare Blitz. It's just going to have to hit Dragon Claw, and this Alakazam in particular is helped to deal with that, to get rid of that +1 Zard, to prevent a sweep, and that would be with its Focus Sash. It'll of course live with 1 HP, and by clicking Counter, it will do all of its HP. I believe it's like 200 something, double that, and that is the amount of damage that Mega Charizard X would take, which is clearly going to OHKO it and put an end to it. Now, outside of that, Psychic is a typical stab. It hits hard. Signal Beam was there for Alolan Persian, and Charge Beam, I believe, was there for Jellicent, and potentially give it 50%. I believe it's 50%. It might be a little bit lower. 70%? I forgot, but basically it's got a pretty good chance to increase your own special attack too. So it can definitely hit hard. You might be wondering why it's running Inner Focus, and I believe that's because Magic Guard isn't compatible with Counter Alakazam. So that's why Inner Focus is there. And now moving on to number 2, we've got Weezing of the Colorado Rapidash, coached by Moonlight Swami. Now, this Weezing in particular is really well tailored, in my opinion, for a very specific threat that posed a problem for his team. When you look at Swami's team, when you see the Sand team, when you see Tyranitar, when you see Excadrill, and you're going up against a Azumarill, which can run Bandit Aqua Jet, can run Belly Drum Aqua Jet, moves that really threaten some of the core of your offense, you need to have some sort of plan to beat that. And that's what this Weezing is. This Weezing has just enough speed to outspeed Azumarill. It's got plenty of defense to take its hits. It's got, leftovers for bulk and such. It's got Sludge Bomb to hit it hard. It's got Thunderbolt to hit it hard. It's got Will-O-Wisp to hit it hard. It's got Haze to prevent any Belly Drum boost. Now, you might think this is overkill, right, for, Azumarill. And I said that Sludge Bomb and Thunderbolt and Will-O-Wisp and Haze all do help counter Azumarill, but that's not why every move is there. Sludge Bomb in particular is there specifically for Azumarill to hit that hard, because of course Stab and super effective. Haze is there for Belly Drum Azumarill, but the other moves are there for coverage against other Pokemon as well. Will-O-Wisp in particular is there for Flygon, and off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly what Thunderbolt is there for. Yeah, I don't actually remember. Sorry about that. But this is not just like an overkill way to counter Azumarill. The moves do have uses outside of Azumarill, but in particular, this was a really well created counter to a huge threat to his team. So good stuff. It didn't come to fruition. He didn't get the chance to go in. He didn't have an Azumarill Belly Drum in his face, didn't have the chance to haze it. So it wasn't particularly effective in any way, but I can see it being incredibly effective at doing its job and having a really important job for Swami's team. And so with that, we get into the final Pokemon. The number 1, the Heat of the week, is going to be Celebi from Munchlaxter United, coached by Bub, who is just joining the league. He is a replacement coach, and he's already winning the first Heat of the week that he can actually participate in. This Celebi is really cool. He's got plenty of special defense, plenty of HP with a def boosting nature, and that's primarily to take hits. This is a support Celebi that can still hit hard with Leaf Storm. Now, you're probably wondering, where's the heat? Is it the Tanga Berry? Not really. Anticipating potential, a couple of U-turns it could potentially take, or maybe a Signal Beam or Hidden Power Bug to try and counter Celebi. I believe that's why the Tanga Berry is there, but the real heat here is the Heal Block. The Heal Block is really cool. Something like a Slowbro can Calm Mind up, take a Leaf Storm, and when you see that a Celebi has Leaf Storm, right, it's pretty easy to bait it to go for a Leaf Storm so that it drops its special attack twice. It's getting progressively weaker and weaker, and as you Calm Mind up, as you slack off, you're going to be gaining HP. However, if you have Heal Block, you can't do that. You can Calm Mind up, and you'll be taking less and less from Leaf Storms, but it doesn't matter how little you're taking as long as you are taking more damage and you're not able to gain any health back because of Heal Block. So this is a hard counter to a potential Slowbro that would want to try and set up on him in his face. And I'm not going to say it was incredibly helpful in that sense. It didn't really get the chance to use Heal Block. It just straight up OHKO'd it, or KO'd it with Leaf Storm when it had the chance to attack it. So again, didn't really come to fruition the way it intended, but like I said, nothing really did this week from a Heat standpoint. So this is creative. Celebi did play a really important role in the match, though, outside of this designated role to hard counter Slowbro. It did take a bunch of hits. It did get off Thunder Waves. It did get damage off with Leaf Storm. It acted as a wonderful pivot, and it was really important to the battle. It didn't do exactly what it was meant to do from a Heat standpoint, but it was important. It played well, and King Bub definitely used it well. So I'm excited to see what he brings in the future. And let me know what you guys think of this Heat of the Week. Are you guys surprised that any Pokemon didn't make it here? Are you guys surprised that the Pokemon are ordered in the way they did? Is there any Heat that I missed? And what kind of sets would you like to see from these mods? Would you guys like to see these Heat sets return in future weeks? Because I love looking forward to each week, seeing how creative these coaches get, see what they can do to try and outmaneuver the problems, the obstacles in their way. And I hope you guys enjoy it too. But until next week, this has been MidniteZer0, and this mission is complete.